We're live.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. It's 6:02 and we are live.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, July, I don't have my agenda in front of me, July, what is it, 7th meeting to order? And ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso,
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell. You're muted, but he's here.
Here. Thank you.
Commissioner Omari Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, you're muted.
They don't see you, then you say something, Michael?
There you go. Okay, we're going to start with the invocation or moment of silence led by the Vice Mayor, followed by the pledge led by
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Madam Mayor. A moment of silence to remember Aretha Lowe's husband and everyone else that we've lost to the coronavirus. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And our prayers and love go out to our city's matriarch and to her family and to everyone. We love you very much and we're thinking and praying for you.
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Hardy, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Everyone stand.
Pledge allegiance
To
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Agenda additions, deletions, or reordering, Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, I received a call from Finance today asking that item C under new business, asking if it could be possibly moved up to item A under new business, as there have been some substantial changes and their attorneys are going to be on this call. And it's expensive if we have to wait until after we listen to the two other items. And they're asking your indulgence if you so care to do so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to.
Madam Mayor, I have my hand up.
Commissioner Robinson.
I'd like to add or ask for just a brief discussion on the timeline and the cash requirements for what I understood as a continuation of a conversation with systemic racism.
I will second that.
Okay.
Is it on the agenda?
No, it's not.
No, I'm asking for it, just a brief explanation, clarification.
Christy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Under the, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I
please,
may,
please.
under the Commission's rules of procedure, only if this is really an emergency could we add something to the agenda. Certainly, any commissioner has the opportunity to get something on the agenda. They just have to do it within the timeframes of the rules of procedure. I think what the clerk is asking for is sort of an administrative reordering due to the fact that folks are going to be waiting to be heard on the bond resolution item and to move that up.
Well, my request, it doesn't have to come before the reordering. It can come at the very end, in fact.
And point of inquiry,
Yes.
I wasn't familiar with that section, and if we could hear it, I would appreciate it. And after it's read, I guess the next question would be who decides what's an emergency or not. We have added items to the agenda many times as recently as last month. And I don't know that any of those were emergency items. And I don't know that this body determined them to be emergency items. And so, is it, if we could hear what part of the rules references that emergency requirement, and then if we can hear who decides what would constitute an emergency that would allow a commissioner to have a chance to add something to the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I believe the agenda procedures are under Rule 12 of your Rules of Procedure, which sets forth the time frame for items to be submitted to be on the agenda, to be finalized by city staff and the city manager. Under subsection 3 of that rule, it talks about amendment to the agenda. And it says there shall be no changes, revisions, or alteration add-ons to a distributed city commission agenda unless the matter is deemed to be an emergency. What that rule doesn't really address is the reordering, which I believe is what the city clerk is just asking for at this time, due to the fact that we're going to have folks standing by several items before we get to the bond resolution. So the add-on, it does have to be an emergency by your rules. I understand Commissioner Hardy's comment that hasn't been brought up in the past, but nobody's asked me about the rules in the past either. So I'm just saying what the rules say.
Sure. And so if I may follow up, Madam Mayor.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about rules here and you've already agreed not to follow any rules in a previous meeting, so I don't understand what this all means, but go ahead, please.
Thank you. So it doesn't say who decides what's an emergency. And so, I'm wondering, given our procedure for adding things to the agenda, if a majority vote of the commission to add something to the agenda would imply that, the commission deems this an emergency, or, so.
Yeah, so what you're supposed to do, Madam Mayor, is if you want to, as we've done in the past, is take a vote on anyone wanting to add something onto the agenda.
And, okay, and this isn't an actionable item that Commissioner Robinson is asking for. He's just asking for staff to provide some information as to how we're going to go forward, given the vote that was taken a few meetings ago.
I'm sure Commissioner Robinson can speak for himself. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
That would say that, just be very specific. That includes the reordering of item, let's see, new business item C to be moved to A, and then A and B subsequently moved down. I'll entertain a motion for that.
And that includes a discussion?
No, it does not.
Point of inquiry.
Yes?
I believe Commissioner Robinson moved to add something to the agenda and that I seconded it. And
Okay.
I understood it that all of those things were bundled together, the reordering and Commissioner Robinson's addition.
No, they're separate. But Christy, I was just under the impression of what Christy said, that it was my, that it was my choice in whether or not we were going to be adding or changing based on the fact that we didn't have this submitted in time with the backup information.
We can move on. I can bring this, my interest up under comments.
Okay, great. So again, then we'd have to rescind the motion in the second.
I don't rescind the second. I think as a privilege, you can allow.
Well, the
Commissioner-
privilege doesn't count here. So
Apparently,
out of the interest of, I don't want to say cooperation, but time moving forward, I'll
Okay.
withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson, because you have that opportunity in your comment section to ask for that. So that's great. Okay, so
But
then
I
the
was
motion,
interested in comments as well. A lot of what I believe is important is back and forth on a whether it be agreed or not, but at least the public deserves response from each one of us.
Okay, well, we can have an update definitely, or if you want to put it on as an agenda item, we can add it as an agenda item anytime, as long as you do it in the manner in which they're supposed to be added so that we have enough time. You can add it for the next meeting if you'd like. Okay, so Commissioner Hardy doesn't want to remove his motion. So what does that mean, Christie?
Well, Madam Mayor, I believe the motion was originally made by Commissioner Robinson. So if he's withdrawn the motion, then there's really nothing to be seconded. So at this point, I think the only thing that's standing is the clerk's request to reorder new business.
Which is what I had asked for. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No,
Motion carries. I only heard one nay. Is there two nays?
Nay.
Okay, so motion carries 3-2. All right, we're gonna move on to, here we go, Commission Liaison Reports and Comments. Commissioner Robinson, you're up.
well, out of the celebration for the 4th of July is certainly a challenging and difficult time for this country. And I think Lake Worth did itself proud with Parrot Cove having a little parade, a fun parade, and Pineapple Beach, putting out their challenges. Our prayers and sympathies go out to the Lowe family. Grady was old man of the sea, and he was a great fisherman, and we'll miss him. The census, neighborhoods need to be challenged. I'm going to say Tropic Ridge is above everybody else's response. We should challenge each neighborhood to do better. Got to wear the masks. And I want to wish Ringo Starr a happy birthday. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things. First off, again, with respect to the Lowe family, I hope that I've reached out and offered up my family's condolences. I think the entire city mourns the passing of Grady Lowe. Here's a little bit of information about the services for those folks who can come and pay their respects. There will be a public viewing between 6 and 7 p.m. on Friday evening at the New Hope Baptist Church at 819 Washington Avenue, followed by an 11 a.m. Saturday morning gravesite ceremony. So I hope that everybody could come out and pay their final respects to the Lowe family, family that's contributed greatly to our community. A couple of other things. I guess most of us may have heard that the executive order was signed today by the governor with respect to the reopening of schools. And I've had conversations with school board member Whitfield and expressed my interest in doing whatever we can to make sure that the children in Lake Worth Beach are fully equipped, whatever they need to get back into the school groove. I don't know what that looks like in a COVID-19 environment. I know there's going to be a lot of challenges for school children in general. I suspect the challenges in some cases are going to be especially difficult for certain populations within our own city limits. So I made it, we talked at length and made it very clear that I think we would all agree that we don't want our children to fall any further behind as a result of this terrible pandemic, and that we are ready and willing to support whatever the school board does to make sure these children have everything they need, the tools they need to be successful and to be part of fostering a really good learning environment. So I'll have more information from school board member Whitfield in a couple of days. I understand that the school board on Wednesday will make the final decisions on how a reopening might look. So I'll be happy to report back anything I find and see what areas that we as a city might be able to participate and partner with to make sure our children are well taken care of this fall. And finally, I guess on the issue of 4th of July, it wasn't quite the same, given all that's been going on around us, but I would like to echo Mr. Robinson's sentiments. There was a lot of good activity in our neighborhoods, and I guess I didn't realize till today, somebody told me that there was actually an authorization that you could legally buy fireworks. Well, that probably explains why there was probably 10 times as many fireworks in my neighborhood this year than there normally would be. So it was a little bit weird, but hopefully next year things move back to normal and we can celebrate the way we traditionally do. And let's not forget that I think when we decided to cancel the 4th of July celebration, that we opted to maybe take a look at doing something a little further down the road if the situation presents itself. So that's pretty much all I have for tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2020 census, I can't tell you how important it is, and we're coming in shy, and neighbors just need to step up. You need to knock on your neighbors' doors and make sure that they took the 2020 census. People are at home. It's very easy. Jess has been working her butt off. Thank you, Jess. And the numbers aren't there, and we've got a short period of time to get them in. They've extended to October, but we just need to get out and get everybody counted. A big thank you to Lauren and her staff. In the middle of the pandemic, they've been working on some different things to make it a little easier at home. Virtual trivia is coming up, and then also virtual sandcastle competition is ongoing, and that will go to July 19th. So tap into the city's website and do some of that stuff, get kids involved. We're continuously feeding. Patrick feeds 5 days a week at Wingfield and 12th Avenue South. That's a walk up. We've got Feeding South Florida at Hatch every Tuesday. People line up as early as 5 a.m. We open the doors at 9, and that's a drive-through, touchless. But again, Patrick feeds 5 days a week. And then I started with prepared meals with Grotto Restaurant and Buchan. Thank you to them. Started 1 day a week. There was so much need that I'm now doing 3 days a week. And that's a prepared meal. It's almost like a gourmet TV dinner, but great food coming out of Grotto Restaurant in West Palm Beach. And we thank them for contributing to the citizens of Lake Worth Beach. And lots of meetings going on, lots of Zoom meetings. Palm Beach County League of Cities, Sober Home Task Force will be coming up. So we're still, Lake Worth Beach is still at the table. We're still at meetings, whether it's Zoom or in person, but we're there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Hardy?
Thank you. And my condolences to Retha Lowe and her family. This has been a challenging year for a lot of us, and when you add a loss like that on top of the many things that have happened to us as a society, my heart goes out to her and her family. Commissioner Robinson brought something up that a constituent called me about earlier today, which is what is the path forward for addressing racial inequity in the city. Commissioner Robinson brought forward several weeks ago in early June this idea of a task force. And under his proposal, which was refined over the weeks, we would have gotten to work within 30 days and at least began addressing these issues, these longstanding inequities in our city, which, contrary to what folks may say, they exist here. And we did not take that approach. We took a different approach that involves hiring a consultant. And the wonderful woman who I happen to know to do some training around equity and to begin having difficult and uncomfortable conversations here, but we haven't received information since that meeting as to how we would be going forward and on what timeline, and most importantly, when we would begin to make policy to address these issues. Every local government in America has contributed to this problem of racial equity, most notably around the issue of housing, which also affects people's health. In addition to that, also with this issue of education. And I hope that we can get started on these issues quickly. But before we get started, we have to be given a roadmap, and we haven't gotten that. And I believe that time is always of the essence, but it's certainly of the essence now. And so I would like to hear from the city manager tonight and at a future meeting, a detailed plan, given that we've decided to outsource this process and outsource to some extent our responsibility for managing this process to folks who don't live or work in this city. I need to hear a detailed plan from the city manager on this. Going forward, I would like to remind folks, and it can be very difficult because of the approach that our state has taken, but COVID-19 is still here. We're still in a global pandemic, and we have broken records in Florida for new cases. And politicians have made lots of excuses for why, these new cases don't mean as much as the numbers suggest they mean. But what we've seen is new cases explode exponentially. And some of the things that really matter, ICU capacity, and also our death rate, those are lagging indicators of new cases, which are themselves lagging indicators of the activity that led to the cases. And unfortunately, we have a governor who has, decided that we're going to open up school. And, for the past few months, we've had 200,000 public school students at home. And the idea that as Florida logs days with 11,000 cases, that we can send 200,000 children to school with their teachers, many of whom are seniors, many of whom have pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure and things like that. The idea that we can send 200,000 people, which is almost a fifth of our population, back to mingle with each other, and that's not going to have an impact on cases, bothers me. I spoke with a principal who spoke with a grandparent of one of his students, and the grandparent basically said she's afraid to send her kid back to school because she's the only family that child has. And if that child brings COVID back home, and if she passes away from it, her grandchild becomes a foster child. I don't believe that the folks who worked together to put that executive order out yesterday or today or whenever it was, I think it was signed today, it was announced yesterday. I don't think those folks have given due consideration to families like that family. And just as they haven't given due consideration to the details and the issues thus far, and we're reaping the consequences of that, I think, unfortunately, we will reap the consequences of sending 200,000 kids back to school without any local control over that issue. And I feel sorry for our peers at the school district, because they were painstakingly going through this issue, and to have the rug pulled out of them by an elected official or a group of them who knows nothing about what's going on in Palm Beach County, and who has been too quick to open up and who's been wrong pretty much every turn, bothers me. And so the last thing I'll say is that I have intimated in previous meetings that I don't know why we're in the utility business. And I've said it, before, I don't know why we're in the utility business. I think it's a tremendous distraction. I think it's hard enough to run a city. It's all the more difficult to run an electric utility. And I don't think we should be in this business. And I think we should approach FPL to see if there's a transaction we can make that leads us to not be in this business. And frankly, when I did that, they were pretty clear with me that they can't entertain any conversation like that until we have a conversation with FMPA. And how the process would work is we would approach FMPA. We would say we're interested in knowing what price we would have to pay, whether that's us individually or as a part of a transaction with a private provider of power. You know, we just need to engage them to see what's the price. What would have to be paid in order for us to get out of our entanglements through FMPA. And if we do that, we can get an answer from them and we can engage FPL, which I think is ultimately the best thing for us as I wrap up my comments. And there are some folks who say, you know, I don't know about this. You know, the city takes money from the electric utility. Well, we would also be paid by FPL. We would be paid a franchise fee by FPL. And as has been noted here by me and staff, our goal over the next few years is to reduce the amount of money that the general fund takes from our electric utility until it gets to the point where we're not taking any more money than we would be taking from FPL. And so at that point, what's the point of having our own electric utility?
Bring us
And
to the agenda item.
and further, well, I would like to finish my comments. And you know, furthermore, folks have said that this is a long and complicated process, and it is a long and complicated process, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't embark upon it. I think most of us know that there are residents, folks who are reticent to move into our city, to buy property in our city, to invest in our city because not necessarily the job that our electric utility does today, but because of the electric utility's reputation. And reputation, once you have a bad one, is a hard thing to fix. And so, you know, I wonder if we're throwing good money after bad here, and I wonder if it might be better for us to approach FPL and before we do that, we'd have to approach FMPA to see whether we can transact with them, and if so, how, and what that would mean for us financially. So those are my comments for this meeting. I will bring it forward as an agenda item, likely at our July 21st meeting. And I hope that, you know, we can at least inquire. I don't see the harm in inquiring what this process, you know, as to what this process would entail, especially if it has the potential to benefit our residents. I think we have a duty to explore this option.
So I think I want to start with, I just want to make sure in reference to the last comments that were made, that we all understand that we are one body as a commission, and that anything that is done separate or on one's own inquiry or whatever is not representative of the entire commission. So I want to make sure that that everyone knows, you know, you don't just pick up a phone and say, hey, this is Commissioner Hardy and I want to talk to FP&L about this, or hey, this is Commissioner Hardy, I want to talk to FMPA about this, or hey, this is, we need to talk to one another about this first and talk to the people of this community about this. And we have in about 47 meetings, but I appreciate that. Bring it back. Also spoke with Erica Whitfield. She invited me to one of the school board's meetings that included parents and everyone in the community. And I really, really appreciated that, Ms. Whitfield. And I understand what you're all saying about bringing the kids back to school. You know, a lot of things have been talked about, from having shifts at the schools so that kids would be, you know, they'd be able to socially distance them and bring certain groups in morning hours and afternoon hours and all kinds of things going on. So it's going to be interesting. But anyway, also in reference to, we had a Zoom meeting on that. And then I had another Zoom meeting, well, a lot of Zoom meetings, I think 17 in the last 9 or 10 days. It's been kind of crazy. Also wanted to talk about Parrot Cove. It was a beautiful socially distanced parade with nothing but masks and goodwill. And I will tell you, the people in the community really got a kick out of seeing people come by their house and wave at them. They were very welcoming, and I had a good time. I'm now in that neighborhood, so I got a chance to be out there. We had just a wonderful, wonderful time. Census, that was one of the Zoom meetings that I was on. I don't know if you guys have got a chance to see Newsworthy, but the vice mayor, it was correct in that we really need to motivate people to fill this thing out. We are in the Census League, which means that ourselves, Green Acres, West Palm Beach, I forget what other communities are in there, Boca Raton, Royal Palm Beach, I think. No, was it Royal Palm? Anyway, we're all in this contest together and they're trying to beat us. And we are the underdog as usual. And we are not in first place. And in fact, we're probably in last place at this point in reference to response. Now, all this energy that we put into, in helping with COVID and relief efforts and so many of these things in nonprofit groups and these grant monies that we receive, it's all dependent on the census. It's all dependent on the census and SNAP programs and lunches at schools and all kinds of things. It's dependent on the census. So I mean, it is so easy to do. You go on there, you're on for a couple of minutes. It is, but it's imperative to our community. Yeah, we have a contest going on, so be it. But you know what? The real contest is, how do we provide for those in need in our community in the future if we don't get a proper count? They only do it every 10 years. I've offered to, I don't know, fellow commissioners, what about a joint TikTok or me cooking for a group of 20 people socially distanced or whatever? What do I have to appeal to you neighborhoods to get together and encourage people to please fill out this census? I thought about it. If we could put 2 weeks at a time and say, okay, whatever neighborhood or group or whatever gets the most amount in the next 2 weeks wins, I don't know, dinner at the beach or golf foursome at the golf course, or like I said, I'll cook for you. We'll do a video for you, whatever we have to do. But we need everyone to really take this seriously. It's that important to us. 10 years. We can't wait again. We were severely undercounted the last time, and we cannot wait another 10 years to make this up. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to our public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Commissioners, this is from Noam Brown. I'm submitting this public comment via email because the public comment cards have not been available online this entire week leading up to this meeting. The email address for the city clerk isn't listed in the how to make a public comment section either. While I obviously can't say why that is so, based on how I've witnessed members of this commission ignoring public comment, it certainly leaves me feeling skeptical. We get 2 minutes. Please make those 2 minutes readily available and easily accessible to the public. The next is from Michael Smolin, and he writes that on April 2nd of this year at approximately 9 p.m., he was traveling west on 6th Avenue South after having turned right from South L Street. Both tires on the right side of my vehicle were blown out when I struck one of the choker curbs that are installed on that roadway. When I returned the next day to examine the area in the daylight, it was obvious that these were narrowing curbs that had been struck many times, resulting in warning reflectors and flashing lights to be missing and or not working. Also, I measured the distance from the choker curb and the yellow line, and it was exactly 8 feet, 96 inches. I filed a claim with the city for reimbursement for my 2 tires and alignment, noting that the area was not properly marked and had not been maintained by the city. Additionally, I explained that the Florida Green Book, the Manual for Traffic and Roadways in Florida, specifically said that any roadway less than 9 feet requires a design exception to be submitted by the city and approved by the state. I was contacted by a man who claimed to be the director of public roads, the director of roads in Lake Worth Beach. He told that the city was not responsible for the maintenance of 6th Avenue South and the county was. I was also sent an email by Mr. DeFaso, Assistant Director of Public Works, who said the man from the roads department was incorrect, but also said the Green Book was only a guideline and the city was not required to adhere to the regulations. Ms. Mary Ann Coos with the FDOT told me he was incorrect. Mr. DeFaso also said he measured from the curb in question to the center of the roadway and it was 9 feet. It is not, it's 8.8 feet, 9 inches. The distance from curb to the first 2 yellow lines is 8 feet, 96 inches. I have to call Mr. DeFaso, but as yet have not received a call back. I have a call into him, but have yet received a call back. So here are the facts. The roadway and the choker curb is less than FDOT requires, 9 feet, which would require a design exception submitted to the state. The choker curb has not been properly maintained, as evidenced by the numerous warning reflectors and lights. They're missing and or inoperative, possibly because the director of the roads department did not know they were the city's responsibility. The curbs have been struck countless times with unknown amount of damage to vehicles since they were installed. I was told by the third-party insurance adjuster for the city that the main reason he was denying my claim was because there had not been numerous other claims for the same problems. Seeing as it took me almost a month to determine who was responsible for the roadway and being given false information twice by the person responsible, it is no surprise that others may have been given up trying to file a claim. I request the city commission to direct the city to reconsider my claim and make a greater effort to provide hazard-free passage on 6th Avenue South between Federal Highway and Dixie Highway. This next comment is from Alan Menster. I am having difficulty on code matters on 929 at 429 South F Street. I tendered the appropriate fees and applications last year, sent numerous emails to Krista Simmons, copied the mayor. I have signed and sealed plans to build new single-family house. This lot is the one the city contractor used to stage the 5th Avenue South walking path. I have other lien issues shared last year and was told I would get a contact from staff and nothing. Met with mayor and city manager last year on other matters and emailed them. Also Jessica Savage, nothing. I need assistance from the commission and staff, please. This last comment is from Richard Gercio. Madam Clerk, this is for the public comment of consent agenda and non-agenda item section. Sorry, doing this from keys on my phone. Madam Mayor, I'm sure you and the rest of the commission are aware of and have read my open letter to Commissioner Hardy on Facebook. I stand by each word and their intentions. I'm sure you're also aware of his response, which he posted on his official Commissioner Omari Hardy Twitter feed. For those who are not, I'll recap. Let me be clear. He didn't suggest that I made a racist comment, nor did he say that I was a racist. What he did do as a retort was label me a racist, as if it were a matter of fact. His opening line was, "A prominent resident and racist wrote ... A prominent resident and racist? How dignified. This is a horrifying comment from an elected official directed towards a member of the community. And it's not the first time. He called another disgusting and repulsive. Yet another resident was chided on being on social media with Hardy asking, 'Are you still beating your wife?' Which, after a rain of criticism, fluffed it off as being nothing more than asking the classic loaded question, while posting the wiki page related to that answer. He then further chided the residents, degrading him for not knowing the question existed. This man's behavior as of late is nothing less than appalling. Madam Mayor, I ask the commission to respond to this unacceptable behavior towards the residents of this community with action. There will be more to be said on this matter, as well as action on my part. I write this comment tonight in order to place his conduct into the official city record. Do something, say something. Thank you, Richard Gercio. That's all the comments I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we're going to move on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to public hearing. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance for me, please? This is the
Yes,
first.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2020-09 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending policies in the infrastructure element of the city's comprehensive plan and adopting the 2020 water supply plan by reference, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date by incorporating a water supply plan and amending the infrastructure element, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, is there any presentation or anything? Okay, are there any public comment cards, Madam City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. We're moving on to new business. Remember, we moved item C to item A. So we're starting with resolution number 25-2020, City of Lake Worth Beach, non-ad valorem revenue bonds, series 2020A, and taxable series 2020B. Bruce, are you joining us? I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Second? Bruce?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can't get my video to work. So just as a brief recap, and I appreciate the time, we submitted a resolution 2520 to approve $27 million. That amount, after talking to both bond counsel and underwriters, was increased to $32 million. And as you may recall, the original borrowing strategy several months back, we were talking predominantly at that time two borrowings. One was a revenue pledge against the penny sales tax, and the other was what we were referring to as a utility, combined utility borrowing. During the underwriting process of that larger combined utility borrowing, the underwriters and bond counsel highly recommended that be pulled out and not included. The stormwater fund and the sanitation fund. So, and it was then recommended that be added to what we are calling the money that we're talking about right now, which is the working capital bond. So that increase, again, was from $27 million up to $32 million. And the sanitation and stormwater pieces were carved out of that and added to, or we're requesting to add that to the working capital borrowing. Based on this change, again, is going from 27 million to 32 million, which is allowing additional borrowing capacity for the stormwater and sanitation projects. The projects that are part of this movement include neighborhood roads for District 3 and 4, Park of Commerce projects, repair to the lining and valves for the outfall pipes, lift station improvements, and heavy truck replacements. And then finally, please note that this recommended amendment really doesn't change the overall debt profile, because it's just moving those pieces from the combined utility to the working capital bond. Depending upon the amortization period, the interest rate we finally receive, and the amortization method, there's two methods: level payment or level principal, and this will all be dictated at time of the marketing of the bond. The increase in annual debt service for that $5 million is approximately $380,000. Excuse me, $380,000 a year, which will have a similar decrease on the utility bond when that bond is issued. So that's the overall change of going from the $27 million up to the $32 million, and the reason and justification behind it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have any public comment cards, Madam City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in, I'm sorry, Commissioner Robinson, your hand is up.
I just, given the changes that are happening almost, well, regularly, I'm going to say, $1 million borrow is going to cost $100,000 a year. and now we're borrowing 5 million and we're gonna pay 380. Are we going to know the details of how this money is going to be spent? Or are we just doing it in a lump sum to the departments and that's how it's going to be spent?
Bruce?
I'm concerned about the requests versus the needs. Nice doesn't necessarily mean need. And I know that we have to borrow, and that's borrowing is good, but it isn't income. And I'm also concerned about the debt payment. For 20 years, somehow we're going to have to pay that back. And I don't know that we've talked a whole lot about income or how we're going to pay it back. That's my comment.
All right.
Madam Chair. Hold on, did you want to address that, Mr. Miller?
Well, to the question relative to the increased borrowing and the projects that are behind the borrowing, I just want to remind everybody that those projects have already been approved by the city commissioners as part of the capital program for fiscal year 20. So those projects were appropriated and approved. What was not approved and what we're doing right now is doing the borrowing authorization that backs up that appropriation of those expenditures.
So we're just increasing what we've already allowed to be spent by $5 million.
No, sir. We are shifting. I'm going to come up with, just a general illustration. Okay. Let's say that we had $40 million of all projects. All we're doing is moving $5 million from one bucket. So it goes, one bucket is decreased and another bucket is increased. That's all we're doing. We are not increasing the authority. We are not changing projects. Everything is the same except for the fact that we're moving it from a combined utility to this working capital bond. That's all we are doing.
Well, if 27 million was good before, then why do we need 5 million more? Is my question, I guess.
Okay, because again, the underwriters and bond counsel are saying the $5 million that was going to be included in the utility bond really doesn't fit to the utility bond for underwriting purposes. We need to take that out of the utility bond, and you have to put it in the working capital bond, or you can put it into the penny sales tax revenue bond. Because we're going out and it fits this working capital bond, it's recommended that we include it in that piece. Again, we're just shifting the bond issue of these underlying projects.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes, I understand that basically, rather than financing these projects, this $5 million worth of projects with these other utility projects, we're financing them with another group of projects. And so that the total amount of expenditures are not increasing. It's just that we're paying for them and financing them with a different group of projects than we had originally intended. I get that. But I think Herman spoke to a larger and perhaps more important point, which is that there's tremendous uncertainty going forward as to the economy. And it's not clear to very many people the impact on, for example, the sales tax that this coronavirus, I would call it a recession, but the numbers indicate it's a depression, have had. And so I think maybe I wonder if we should, and I think we said this earlier a few meetings ago when we were talking about that $10 to $20 million we were talking about borrowing, whether we should just put everything on hold and not make these decisions right now. That goes for things even that we've already appropriated, because when we appropriated them, we did not expect to see 11% headline unemployment and much higher underemployment numbers and consumer, consumer spending dip and penny sales tax receipts fall and all these sorts of things. And so, Bruce, what would you say to that?
Well, we have talked about the very same things during our conversations with bond counsel and our financial advisors. So one of the initiatives that we put on the table for the financial advisors was if we were to realize decreases, let's say in the penny sales tax that you mentioned, we did a 40% haircut on that, on those revenue streams. And with the current debt profile that we are recommending, we could pay debt service based on a 40% decline in that sales tax revenues. So we have looked at that.
Sure. May I follow up, please?
I thought he was just finishing his comment.
Sure. Well, okay. I just want to make sure I have an opportunity to follow up.
Yeah, that's fine. Just
so we're looking at the same concerns you are, that you mentioned. The other thing I would put on the table for consideration is, this working capital piece. If I could go back a little bit, originally I came to you and asked for about $20 million borrowing authorization for working capital. And that piece was based on the uncertainty of what this pandemic may have on the economy and on the cash flows. And that we did not want to be put in a position where our cash flows were such that we could not sustain paying ongoing bills and payroll, et cetera, et cetera. That discussion then morphed into, with the the financial advisors, a opportunity to repay ourselves for pay-go activity over the years. And so we added the pay-go, the amounts of money that we have paid from cash for capital projects, and how much did those amounts equal? And it was about $16 million. So part of this $32 million or $27 million are those projects. So we said, all right, let's take those projects, repay ourselves, and put that money in the bank. And essentially that's working capital. So the marketplace has a different perspective between working capital for straight working capital purposes and capital itself, investment. The working capital is, well, I'll put it this way. When you have capital, there are assets behind that borrowing, if you will, okay? So we have $16 million that will now come back into the city's cash reserves that we can use for different purposes, including working capital. And then another piece of that bond recommendation is true working capital requirements. What would happen if we needed additional money? And then the other piece is that $5 million that we just spoke about. So that they are the pieces of the moving parts, if you will. for financial purposes, the city does not have deep reserves. So this bond that we're talking about increases those reserves, fund balances to a point that are a little bit healthier. So there's more moving parts here than that I want to put on the table for everybody's awareness as we discuss this. Madam Mayor?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hardy, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I appreciate the background and the color. I think though that we sort of missed each other.
Okay.
I understand that sales tax receipts could fall precipitously and that we would, even in that event, be able to service the debt on the borrowing proposed here. That's not the issue that concerns me, or put it this way, that's not the only issue that concerns me. There's an additional concern, which is that by borrowing this money this evening, we are essentially committing in a way that we are not to other projects. We're committing our sales tax funds to a particular project or group of projects. And if sales tax receipts do, as it turns out, fall precipitously going forward, we're basically committed to these projects, and the other projects that we're not, bonding out on, basically like there won't be stuff left for them, right? And so it doesn't give us an opportunity to, in the face of decreasing revenue, go back to the appropriation or allocation conversation that we were having and reallocate anew in the face of a smaller budget. What would you say in response to that? And then there's one more follow-up.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Yes, you're recognized.
The presentation, if you will, of the projects last fall, last October, were essentially prioritized for the most important projects from the penny sales tax, and upfront, if you will. It may not be one-for-one correlation, but majority of those projects were weighted upfront and then in the back years. Two, the sales tax revenues can only be used for specific capital items. The sales tax can't be used to offset operating expenditures and the like. So it's very specific in purpose and use. What we're trying to do is leverage those bond proceeds and get a head start on projects that we would otherwise not be able to complete until those revenues were received.
If I can, well, I had another follow-up, but
Follow-up, Commissioner Hardy, go ahead.
sure. I don't deny that penny sales tax can only be spent for infrastructure projects, and things that are going to be owned by the public long term. But I would dispute, and maybe I should ask, what process did we use to prioritize or rank the projects that eventually that we allocated this money to? I recall us coming to a compromise on our individual items. I don't recall us in the process of that compromise through any formal means ranking certain projects ahead of other projects. How do we formalize the prioritization that you say took place?
And you're,
Mr. Miller, go ahead.
thank you. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Yes, the ranking was more of a administrative ranking versus a ranking that the 5 commissioners undertook. I apologize for that.
Okay, so that and that's critical. So the concern that I had then stands, right? Which is that we allocated a certain amount of money, and some of this money it's capable to we allocated some money for a range of projects, which included the fleet garage and and other infrastructure projects throughout the city, including our parks and amenities. And some of these projects it makes more sense to finance, the way that we're doing them, right? So we go and we take out this bond, and let's say the economy continues as it has been, and sales tax receipts are less than what we expected them to be. And so now there's not all the money that we had allocated, but we've basically given a placeholder for one particular project, even though this body, as you noted, did not formalize any prioritization of this project over other projects. And so, I wonder if we might just wait, being that we don't know what the future holds for us economically. We don't know what penny sales tax receipts are going to look like. There's tremendous uncertainty. And this body has not formalized, a priority ranking of the projects that we allocated. So maybe we should just wait, watch penny sales tax receipts come in, watch the economy recover, hopefully, and go ahead with this, as opposed to committing ourselves to this project and then maybe turning around in the future and not being able to do the other things that we wanted to do. And before you raise that issue, I did have another follow-up. The $20 million working capital bond, I just want to be, which is important for our liquidity. We gotta have liquidity, but that doesn't address these issues here with this penny. That $20 million working capital bond was for the sorts of ongoing things that we as cities tend to do. This is a sort of a different conversation, so I'm not understanding how one affects the other than this being a conversation about our liquidity in general. But please, why shouldn't we just wait on this bond related to the penny sales tax until we have some clarity and visibility as to what sales tax receipts, whether they're going to stabilize and at what level?
Okay, Assistant City Manager, you got your hand raised?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I want to try to add some clarity to Commissioner Harding and Commissioner Robinson's questions, specifically as they speak to the sales tax projects. And I think this will help. If you remember the compromise package, quote unquote, that was compromised by the policy board last fiscal year for our capital plan, the majority of that spending of that package was spread over a 5-year period. So sales tax monies do lag coming in under what they have been projected, which we're projecting ahead of pace prior to the COVID. But it is reasonable and fiscally responsible to think that maybe they'll come under. The way the plan was laid out over a 5-year period, there's some elasticity there to kind of stretch things out without delaying further delayed, deferred projects, which make up the meat and potatoes of the list. Specifically, the motor pool, which is in a deplorable condition, which I would encourage strongly that this commission not delay that new construction. There's also the general government section of that compromise package that was also projects that were deemed life safety capital needs, not anything new, nothing new and shiny. They were things like elevator upgrades, fire sprinkler suppression system upgrades, roof replacements, HVAC replacements. These are all deferred capital. And I say deferred, meaning years that they've been deferred that we can no longer as a city continue to defer. Now, those projects in total in that one bucket only amount to $1.2 million. I think, Bruce, financially, our proceeds that have been coming in monthly and over an annual state, the city can handle any dip in sales tax money to cover that, quote unquote, cost. As far as that goes, is making that part of the debt service payment. The cybersecurity component, which was almost $1 million, was spread over a 5-year period. It wasn't all going to be spent up front in year one. So we will have time as a city to kind of track, to your point, Commissioner Hardy, the sales tax proceeds as they come in, and we can make adjustments along the line if we're forced to fiscally because of the disbursements coming to the city every month. So, and again, $5 million of that money was specifically roads and sidewalks, again, spread over a 5-year period where $1.5 million approximately was going to be spent within each district over a period of time. So again, the borrowing is now, but the expenditure of the money was spread over a 5-year period. If that helped kind of explain, the concern of not being able to make the payment, per se.
Madam Mayor?
And I
Yes.
would like to clarify a few things,
Go ahead, Bruce.
because I think the most important piece there is the majority of this true bonding of the revenues for the sales tax. We're not talking about the majority of that right now. Okay, we are going out and we're going to have a conversation on that sales tax bond. It was essentially a revenue bond where we're securitizing those revenues of those sales tax and those projects. What we're talking about right now are again, 3 pieces. One, as it started out as a working capital note.
Right.
And we took $20 million of that. We took $16 million of that 20, of the original 20, and said, we're relabeling that as a repayment. The end result is the same. We're getting $20 million in capital, working capital. 16, we were just paying ourselves back of capital that we had already spent. So we're just repaying ourselves back. So 16 plus 10, because the 10 is what we really are saying was working capital. That got us to the $27 million, okay? Then we said there are borrowings that the sanitation and the stormwater funds had on their, and it was originally part of the combined utility. Those projects are not part of the combined utility, or should not be part of the combined utility. And that's why we are putting them in this piece. I think when we were starting to talking about and it was my fault, and I apologize, but when we're talking about the penny sales tax, that's an adjunct too. And Commissioner Hardy, you are absolutely right. You can always revisit. And I get, and it's a good thing to revisit prior decisions. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we borrow this money, okay, it's not saying that we or you as a city cannot reprioritize what that money is going to be used for, as long as it's for a like purpose. So if we borrow the $32 million in a month from when we do it, or 3 months from when we do it, or 5 months from when we do it, the commissioners have a different purpose. Again, as long as the purpose is similar, you can reprioritize those funds. You have that authority.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah, just Commissioner Robinson, I see your hand is up. I'm get to you as soon as Commissioner Hardy is completed. Thank you. Go ahead,
So-
Commissioner Hardy.
I get that we can always change our mind, but the problem is it would appear that this money that we're borrowing, it's basically, guaranteeing the bondholders that we'll pay them out of the proceeds of the penny sales tax. We had, well, not the whole amount.
None of it.
None of it.
Yes.
So none of this is related to penny sales tax at all.
No, that's an adjunct to the kind of overall bonding strategies that we've been working with. There's three bonds strategies that we have been talking about, and the overlay is, one is for the penny sales tax,
Okay.
2 is a utility bond, and 3
Right.
is the working capital bond.
Okay.
It's those 3 separate and distinct
Right.
initiatives, if you will,
Right.
All
So this is
all moving forward at the same time.
not the utility bond. Understood that. And this is certainly a conversation about the working capital bond, which we previously, discussed.
Yes, sir.
And this is about nothing else.
This is about moving money, not from the sales tax proceeds. We're moving money from the utility bond to this bond,
which is the
working capital.
only.
Yes, sir.
And so we're gonna pay the debt service on this from what exactly?
Depending upon where the, what projects the proceeds are coming back to. So for example, the 5 million that we're talking about right now, because those projects are between the stormwater and the sanitation funds, that would be paid from those funds. If it's a general fund allocation, it would be coming from the general fund. Most of these projects are coming in from prior working capital or working capital disbursements for water, for water, sewer, majority of this is in other enterprise funds or other revolving funds.
Okay, so none of these projects would have been the list of projects that we discussed as a part of the penny, like none of them, not the sidewalks, none of that.
None of it, no.
Okay, all right, clear misunderstanding on my part. My apologies.
And my apologies that I didn't articulate that.
My apologies equally as much for the add-on there, Bruce. And Commissioner Hardy, my apologies.
Time we can't get back, fellows. Commissioner Robinson.
I think he's muted.
Unmute yourself.
How's that? So I'm concerned about payback. You know, we're going to have borrowed money as if it was income. And Commissioner Maxwell proposed parity for electric years ago, and it was an excellent idea. And actually, it didn't work out quite as well as we wanted it to. Now we're looking at borrowing $80 million to continue maintaining parity. So that's going to put us in a payback position as well. Debt is good as long as you can pay it back. When you can't raise the rates to be competitive, or if we do raise the rates and we're not competitive, that's going to put Lake Worth again in the perception of an expensive place to live. I'm concerned about now raising the rates on water beyond being at parity with other communities. I want to be competitive, and if we have to borrow money to be competitive, it's I understand the purpose of borrowing money. That's a good thing. I'm concerned about debt and payment. We don't have the income that I see to talk about, and we haven't even talked about the electric debt that we're going to be looking at, and that's going to go beyond the cutoff of payment to the general fund. I don't want to drift into the concerns of electric investment, but now we're talking about water and sewer, and the income that is going to be required is going to come from rates. I don't know, unless it's going to come from somewhere else. I just wanted to have a little bit of an answer back and forth on the idea of parity for water and sewer with our other communities.
We
Thank
can
you.
have at our electric utility meeting, probably we can add that to the agenda. I just want to say that, yes, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and we have all these things to look for, but the streets still need to be fixed. I mean, we talk about sewer lines, sewer water came up inside of people's houses this year. We had to deal with that in certain sections of town. There's flooding issues in certain homes in other areas of town. There's potholes in places still. We still have to maintain basic public safety, even though we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And okay, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. Do we have any public comment cards? Madam City Clerk?
Did
We
I?
went at it, we went back again, and we took 3 bites and 4 bites at the apple. So what,
Well-
do you have any public comment cards, Madam Clerk?
None
Madam
on
Mayor,
this
did I-
issue.
What? None? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I guess I didn't hear any opposed, so
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to, remember, we reordered, so let's go on. You guys need a break or you want to keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. Move on to resolution number 23-2020, urging the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners to rename Dixie Highway. Commissioner Hardy,
I move to approve this resolution.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes, so I brought this forward because it's really long overdue. And you know, I'll tell you that the word Dixie has a long history. And you know, I wrote about that in the memo. You know, the origin of the word is not exactly clear. You know, some people trace it back to you know, Louisiana banknotes, you know, which obviously predates the Confederacy. But at some point, certainly after 1859 and certainly around 1861, you know, in 1859, the song Dixie was written. It was a minstrel song. It was meant to be performed in blackface, and it was pretty much every time it was performed, certainly by Daniel Decatur Emmett. You know, the song Dixie was performed at Jefferson Davis's inauguration as the president of the Confederate, you know, states. And, you know, it basically became the de facto anthem. And that word, despite its apparent origin as referring to Louisiana banknotes, is a word that is pretty, you know, freighted, which is the word that I've used, but, you know, it has a lot of racial baggage to it. And, you know, I think, you know, you can say that, you know, when some people use the word Dixie, they're, you know, referring endearingly to the Southern United States. That may be true, but I think we all know that words can have more than one meaning. And certainly one meaning that is very accurately attributed to the word is basically as a reference to the Confederacy and to, you know, the states that made up the Confederacy and to the slaveholding South. And, you know, that's why, you know, frankly, we have this highway here. I don't think it's appropriate to name, thank you, Bruce. I don't think it's appropriate to have a highway that runs through a community as diverse as ours that carries this name. And, you know, I think it's more than appropriate to do what our colleagues to the south have done, which is begin a conversation, countywide conversation as to what to, you know, rename this highway, you know, to be. You know, Miami-Dade County, you know, no one would mistake the county commissioners down there as, you know, bleeding heart liberals who are just looking for, you know, things to do and history to upset. You know, I think they have a pretty balanced commission ideologically. Well, they voted unanimously to start this process of changing the name of Dixie Highway. Hallandale Beach, which has a wonderful elected official by the name of Sabrina Havilana, passed a resolution much like this one. As a matter of fact, I pretty much adapted her resolution to our city and to our situation here, where they basically took the position that the highway shouldn't have this name and that they should approach the Broward County Board of Commissioners to you know, rename it. And that's what they did. And the Broward County Commission said, you know what? Yeah, this name doesn't belong on a highway in a community as diverse as ours. And I regret that we're a little late to the conversation, but there's still time for us to act here. And I don't see this as controversial. You know, there are lots of folks who say, oh, you know, I don't, you know, when I hear the word Dixie, I don't think of the Confederacy. I don't think of slaveholding states. I don't think of racism. I don't think of that long history. And, I think that may reflect their upbringing and, the privileges that they've enjoyed throughout their life. But when many African Americans hear that word, it evokes an ugly history. And so I'm asking that we vote to send this resolution to the county commission and to ask them to take up this issue countywide. I don't think Dixie Highway should have 13 different names in Palm Beach County. And I think that we should take a coordinated countywide approach. Riviera Beach, it should be noted, did this for their own city. They renamed it to President Barack Obama Highway. And I'm very open-minded as to what the name should be. I'm more focused on that it shouldn't be Dixie than on, what it could be. I have preferences in the resolution. I state my preferences, Fannie and Sam James Highway or Yeager Highway after the people whose land we're sitting on right now. But people have thrown out lots of amazing things, Jewel, all sorts of things. But I think that's for us to have a conversation countywide, and I would love for us to take a leadership position there. So I'm hoping that we approve this evening.
I have a question, Commissioner Hardy. Well, actually, I should ask city staff. Dixie Highway is an FDOT road. So we can't name it. I mean, I know you said Riviera Beach did it. They did it on Old Dixie Highway, not regular Dixie Highway. Is Old Dixie Highway a city-owned road or is it a FDOT road?
We don't have, to my knowledge, an Old Dixie Highway here. It's my understanding that FDOT would have to be involved at some level. But the way to get FDOT on board, and again, I don't want this to be just for our stretch of Dixie Highway, which is why I'm asking that we approach the county commission. I don't think that the name Dixie should be on a highway or a street in this county or in any county. So I think the county commission is the appropriate way to start this conversation.
Is Old Dixie Highway a city road or an FDOT road? Does anyone know? City manager? Assistant City Manager?
Madam Mayor, it is a state FDOT roadway.
Okay. And they were able to name it whatever they wanted on that stretch?
It would be my understanding that they would be the arbiter on what the final name would be because they are the owners. So I'm not sure the process on that.
Okay. I'd like to find that. Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I just think, again, we have an opportunity to take a little bit of a leadership position, step at a time, rather than doing it in a study type of thing. Dixie Highway is got a lot of different names just throughout Florida, and it goes north of Florida. Dixie is a throwback to the Civil War, and it is now time that we recognize this is an example of I'm recognizing it as a systemic racism, the recognition that little things like this, and it's a big thing and a little thing, but it's still in the face of what we shouldn't be celebrating. The Confederacy were meant to destroy the country that we did have. And I think that they lost, and we shouldn't be celebrating any of those great people that turned against our country. I'm not, we can get into different names and different names. I just as soon call it Liberty Highway or some action type celebrating our country as it is now with a different name. So we can make the effort. We need to make the effort. And I think there's a lot of people in town, a lot of people in the country that don't recognize systemic racism. This is a small example of how the system recognizes the celebration of racism. So I thank Commissioner Hardy for his courage to bring something like this forward, because people don't like change, but we have the opportunity to take a leadership role, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment cards?
We do, Madam Mayor. First one, hello, my name is Audrey Locker. I live at 822 North C Street. I support the renaming of Dixie Highway to a name that does not glorify the racist past of the American South. I would support changing the name to Jaga Highway, Fannie James Highway, Jewel Highway, or any name that honors the history and contributions of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color to what we now call Lake Worth Beach in Palm Beach County. We are seeing such changes being enacted the world over, and it is time for it to happen here as well. I urge you to make the right decision. Thank you for your time. My name is Jay Canella. I live at 1224 16th Avenue North, Lake Worth, Florida. I support the idea of renaming Dixie Highway to Jewel or any other alternative name that the public supports and isn't linked to a racist history. For those who don't know, Jewel is the original name of Lake Worth. The first pioneers of the city were Fannie and Sam James, who were an interracial couple speculated to be former slaves. I believe it is significant to uplift their narrative by recognizing Dixie Highway as Jewel, as this history is largely ignored in our modern context of renaming cities or streets, despite having such an important place in local history. Let us acknowledge Black history instead of letting it fall to the wayside. In solidarity, Jay Canella. Hello, as a resident of Delray Beach, I support the resolution to urge the County Commission to rename Dixie Highway. I appreciate Lake Worth taking the lead on this critical issue, and I'm eager to see the entire county follow Lake Worth's estimable lead. This next one is from Wes Blackman. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My wish tonight is to remind everyone of the historic importance of the main north-south thoroughfare that runs through the city of Lake Worth Beach and its importance in the developing of our community. It is part of a network of U.S. highways that link the Northeast and Midwest to South Florida. I'd like to reiterate the first recitation in the resolution as a reminder of its beginnings. Dixie Highway is a result of millionaire Carl G. Fisher's idea in 1914 to encourage travel from the Midwest to Miami Beach, long before President Dwight E. Eisenhower's creation of the interstate highway system and completed in Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties in 1915. Carl Fisher and other automobile pioneers shared a vision of their new inventions traveling on smooth concrete roads, which enabled travel between cities and ultimately transcontinental travel. Prior to this effort, travel by automobile was limited to paved roads in the cities. More adventurous and tortuous travel awaited flimsy early vehicles on rusted dirt and former stagecoach routes between cities. Much in the same way as we currently strive for more internet bandwidth to carry information today, it was also true for the early period of the automobile industry. The same Carl Fisher and others were part of an auto manufacturers group that organized and initially funded the Lincoln Highway. The Lincoln Highway eventually became a cross-country road consisting mostly of what was to become US Route 30 along most of the way between New York City and San Francisco. US Route 66 is another cross-country highway with a celebrated lore of its own. Depicted as the Mother Road in Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, and commemorated with parades and vintage car caravans to this day. That's the timer, sorry. I can't finish that one. This one is from Sean Oliver. Hi, may I suggest that those that desire to see the name change raise the money necessary related to the costs of changing the name. Example, street signs, businesses having to change their addresses, etc. Taxpayer money should not go to such frivolous expenditures. Taxpayer money should go to interest that serves the community as a whole and isn't divisive. Good luck. This is from Noam Brown. I would like to express my support for urging the county to rename Dixie Highway. It is clear to me that any legislative body such as this that has expressed a desire to right the wrongs of the systemic racism, as all of you on this commission have expressed in the last couple of meetings, should see this resolution as a no-brainer. Otherwise, what argument can you make for holding on to this name Dixie while still being able to say with a straight face that you're serious about addressing racism? I read in the paper one argument that read as follows: the name should be left alone. It's been that way for many years. Is that the rationale for keeping something around despite its roots in racist violence and oppression? Because it's been that way for many years? Slavery, Jim Crow? Should we have left those alone because they had been that way for many years? Police brutality, housing discrimination, mass incarceration. Should those be left alone because they've been that way for many years? Let me be real honest. While communities all across this country are taking significant steps in reckoning with their racist policies that have brought so much pain, suffering, and death, there is a majority on this commission that seems completely stuck on being kept the status quo as it relates to issues of racism. You find all the right words to say, but I have yet to see any real action. If you don't even vote for this no-brainer of a resolution, but then take the podium on Martin Luther King Day to talk about celebrating diversity and how far we've come, etc., I would expect the people of conscience in the crowds to turn their backs on you the way you've been turning your backs on them. It's time for this commission to change its course. You can start today by voting to urge the county to rename Dixie Highway. I completely support renaming Dixie Highway. It's time this one is by Echo Steiner. I completely support renaming Dixie Highway. It's time we stop celebrating our nation's original sin. It's time to move forward to the honoring of our nation as united people. Let's set history straight. It was the side that lost. These were people threatened by the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. We are better than this. Best regards. This one is from Ruby Bell. She's against this change. Stick to issues related to Lake Worth Beach and within our budget. We preserve historic places, buildings, homes, etc. Dixie Highway was established in 1914 as part of the Auto Trail System and is designated as a historic highway. The most northern point is Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Most southern is Miami, Florida. It was an original route designed to connect the Midwest with the southern United States. Who will compensate businesses that line Dixie Highway for their address change on all of their business documents? Next is from Melody Malfa. Thank you, Commissioner Hardy, for proposing to eliminate Dixie from our community, as this is long overdue. I look forward to seeing more of your proposals which address systemic racism. I hope we will rename our city next so as not to continue to honor the racist murderer General Worth. Sincerely, Melody. This is from Alstair Leahy. I am a lifelong resident of Lake Worth. Changing the name of Dixie Highway will only be a form of progression, and progress is what's always necessary for a community to grow. The next one is from Jonathan Leahy. I am in favor of changing the name of Dixie Highway in Lake Worth to something more representative of minorities, such as the founders of Lake Worth, the Jewell family, etc. This is from Evan Leahy. Hello, as a Lake Worth resident, I request you move to change the name of Dixie Highway. Jasper Leahy, hello, I am writing to request the name change from Dixie Highway to something more in line with 2020 values, justice and equality for Black people. I think honoring the first postmaster, Fannie James, would be especially fitting. This one is from Lourdes Thomas Leahy. Good evening. I am a tax-paying homeowner and a person of color resident from the city of Lake Worth Beach. 30 years ago, when I first moved to this city, I wondered about Dixie Highway. I said, isn't that a racist name and why don't they change it? I found it so odd considering this is a city that has always embraced diversity. Lake Worth Beach has been a haven for those who are not afraid to stand up for what's right. My understanding is that this is the first city in the South that hosted the Gay Pride Parade. People came from all over just to participate in this wonderful celebration of diversity. We hold the Street Painting Festival, which is an homage to the arts, and we hold an annual Martin Luther King celebration every year for the past 25 years or more. Although this is not enough, we need to do better. If we are indeed an embracing city, why would we consider honoring the individuals that pioneered? Why wouldn't we consider honoring the individuals that pioneered this great city? I stand in favor of replacing the name with a more embracing and honoring name. This is from Melissa Winchester. Good afternoon. I support the renaming of Dixie Highway. The name is a racist remnant of an ugly past, and we can do better. Thank you. This is from Michael Allison. He's against changing the name. Since you are the city commissioner, rather than confuse the general public and what few business patrons we have by renaming our busiest business street, how about focusing on city issues that affect the quality of life in our city, such as infrastructure, potholes all over town that sometimes take months to fill, broken sidewalks and curbs all over town that cause injury when people trip and fall, storm drains, storm sewers that back up on our streets all over town, code compliance, boats and non-working vehicles stored in front driveways and streets, landscape trash piles that are routinely put out the next day or a few days after collection, causing an eyesore and blocking traffic and parking until the next collection day, landscape and fences blocking vehicle drivers' line of sight at intersections all over town, including on city-owned property such as the median on South Palmway, residents that routinely leave bulk trash cans and shopping carts in plain view, prostitution and drug sales day and night on our gateway streets, items of physical evidence from prostitution and drug sales found on a regular basis in the lawns and streets of my neighborhood of South Palm Park. The topics above are all city's responsibility, not the county, state, or federal. I encourage you as a city commissioner to focus on issues that directly affect the quality of life for our city residents. This is from Richard Gercio. Madam Mayor, regarding the renaming of Dixie Highway, niet. Thank you. This one is from Franco Flavia. Is for this, I am in favor of passing this recommendation to the county commissioners to change the name of Dixie Highway. I want to remind you all, while changing names of street is a way of moving forward and dealing with the issue of police brutality in the Black community, it will not stop the police force from killing Black people on the streets. I believe the way to stop police brutality is by taking millions from police department that are being negligibly being used and by allocating to the betterment of our society. Examples: community center, rehab centers, homeless shelters, parks, after-school programs, LGBTQ resources, survivor centers, and women's shelters. The police budget must be decreased. In other words, I'm asking you tonight to follow the steps taken in Minneapolis and take steps towards defunding the police. This one is from Sienna M. I support the resolution to rename Dixie Highway to a name that does not have racist underpinnings. It's about time. Suki De Jong, way overdue to rename Dixie Highway. I support this resolution. I suggest Harriet Tubman Highway. Annalyn Martinez. It is clear that our society is looking to shift towards eliminating the negative racism of our past in order to create a more equal society. Changing the name of this highway is one step in the right direction. The next one is from Kashambra Miller Anderson. Hello, my name is Kashambra Miller Anderson, and although I am a city council person for Riviera Beach, I am not commenting on behalf of the city. I am speaking as a resident of Riviera Beach. Back in 2015, the Riviera Beach City Council made a bold move by recognizing the importance of removing the name Old Dixie from one of our main thoroughfares that ran through the heart of our community. There are many people that want to know how they can jumpstart change, and advocate for equality and social justice reform. This can be the initial springboard to show the community that you all stand for equality and the desire to see where everyone is respected and not have a constant reminder of what Dixie represents. I fully support and commend Commissioner Omari Hardy for bringing this item forward for your consideration and support. As a member of the Palm Beach County Caucus of Black elected officials, I am sure they would love to see you all support this as well. Thank you. This next one is from Penny Darling. To the Lake Worth Beach City Commission, I am urging you to urge the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners to rename Dixie Highway. It's time the nomenclature of our county's roadways and other institutions demonstrate respect for all of Palm Beach County citizens. This is the least we can do. Provide an inclusive environment free from tributes and memorials to our country's racist history. Let our beautifully diverse city lead the way in this endeavor. Thank you. Andrea Trainer. I support the renaming. Other counties across South Florida have agreed. It's time for Lake Worth to realize what a painful reminder Dixie represents in our community. And finally, Nick Paolucci. Sorry if I ruined the name, but he supports the renaming of Dixie Highway. I also think that local government needs to go beyond symbolic steps to address the disparities in our area. But in the case of renaming Dixie Highway, why hold on to such a terrible legacy when there are so many better stories to commemorate that aren't a mortal stain on our history? Jewel, the name given by our first postmaster, who was reported to be a former slave, seems like a good candidate. If we want a city of residents who actually feel invested in where they live and act accordingly, we need a much wider reimaging of our world and how we relate to each other. Some people will roll their eyes at this idea, but consider the alternative, which we are all living through right now. Taking the time to address history and orienting to the possibility of a better future, even symbolically in the renaming of Dixie Highway, seems like a positive step in the right direction. Rather than framing this in the tired language of the culture wars, let's frame it as a course correction towards the kind of world we'd like to live in. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all of them. And if anyone's asking about the timer, I just set it on those items that may have gone over the 2 minutes, and I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Maxwell? You're muted. Unmute you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure where to begin, but I'll just get right after it. You know, I think that this is well-intentioned, this initiative. But if you don't mind, Madam Mayor, I'd like to share a story with you and the commission about what I felt was a well-intentioned initiative some years ago, as it pertains to the wall in the Wingfield community. In the Wingfield Street, I should say. As you all are very much aware, there is a wall that runs along Wingfield in the Osborne community that has a very interesting and not a very nice history as far as I'm concerned. And basically that wall, as I understand it, was a wall intended to keep people divided, to keep people apart. And more specifically, the Black residents from the white residents. And a number of years ago, I opted to kind of take on that initiative. I felt that there was a need to address that wall. There was talk about what to do with that wall and how to handle it. And I felt very strongly about that because I know when I looked at the wall, I was very offended by what the wall represented. And I felt very strongly that maybe the wall should come down. But then I realized after a very short period of time, as I started asking more questions and I started bringing forth some ideas to the community, that I had it all wrong. Not that my intentions weren't good or that my vision of what that wall represented were maybe incorrect, but I didn't ask the community. I never bothered to ask the community what they wanted to do about the wall. And I found out very quickly that there were a lot of opinions on how to deal with that wall. And as a result of it, the wall still stands today. And the community still has yet to decide what they want to do with that wall. I guess my point is I made and learned a very valuable lesson then. And that is you have to listen to the community. You have to ask the community. And, you know, we just had a spirited discussion not too long ago about how a conversation might ensue and go on here in the community with respect to race relations and systemic racism and equity and other issues like that. And my position then was that, and still is, that we had a suggestion that was offered to us to bring forth a task force that was simply a top-down type of approach with dealing with an issue. I don't see this issue as being much different than being a top-down solution to an issue. I'd like to know, you know, how many people in the community have been, you know, brought into the circle, so to speak, on this question. And also, I guess I'd like somebody to comment. I'm getting a lot of notes here that say that there's a lot of folks in the community that don't support this initiative. So I'm not sure what to do about this other than to say to everybody that this is a community decision that needs to be made, not one individual's attempt to cure what he perceives as an issue. In reading his backup, there's a lot of very interesting comments made about what he perceives, the maker of the motion perceives as the history of this highway and its intention. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but there's quite a lot of information in here that I think reasonable people could review and discuss and debate, but that's not what I'm going to do here tonight. So I guess I'm just throwing out there that, you know, I'm not sure that I can support this only because we haven't included the community in this decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are you making a motion or?
Well, I think the motion's already been made. I'm just saying that, you know, I guess I can make a friendly amendment to the motion and say, look, if we're willing to allow the community to weigh in on this, then, you know, if the community wants to move forward with it, then I say we go for it. But until we've asked the community, before we've had an opportunity to have everybody weigh in on this, I think it's premature.
The maker of the motion, was that you, Commissioner Hardy? Or was it Commissioner Robinson? I'm sorry, you're muted.
It was me, but I did not accept the amendment.
You don't accept the amendment.
Well, unfortunately, Madam Mayor, he would have to accept the amendment because the motion that he made is no longer his, it's the body's.
No. First of all,
Commissioner,
I made a,
hold on one second, Commissioner Maxwell. What do you think?
According to Robert's rules, the maker of the motion does not own the motion. Once it is made and seconded, the motion belongs to the body. Therefore, a friendly amendment does not need the support, if you will, from the maker of the motion.
the amendment isn't friendly unless it has support from the maker of the motion. That's what makes it a friendly amendment. If you want to amend my original motion, you can make a motion, a subsidiary motion to amend it, which would then have to be seconded and voted on. But well, you know, that I think, and the attorney, Matt, you know,
Trying to get to Christie.
you know,
Christie.
you can weigh in on this, but you know, and by the way, no one was saying this earlier when Commissioner Robinson made a motion, which apparently belonged to him because he withdrew it very early on in the meeting. Very interesting tidbit to bring up at this
Point
point.
of order, Madam Mayor.
Point of order, please. Commissioner, let's go. I mean, city attorney.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The rule is you can ask to make a friendly amendment to the maker and the seconder of the motion. And if they agree to it, then it is a friendly amendment. Alternatively, if you want to propose an amendment to the motion on the table, you can make a motion to amend and then state what you're amending.
Okay.
That then has to be seconded and voted upon before it can go back to the main motion.
Okay, well, my friendly motion stands.
Okay, so do I have a second?
I don't accept it.
Do I have a second?
There is no second, Madam Mayor, but I'll propose a subsidiary motion of the same nature. And that is that we take this back to the community and get their support.
Point of inquiry.
Yes, sir.
what process do you prescribe to get the community's understanding as to whether they support this or not?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I think we need to either see if there's a second to the amendment before we engage in a discussion about it. And then if there's a second, we can obviously engage in discussion about the actual amendment.
I know it seems everyone's just calling their own motions whenever they feel like it. So I'm going to mute everyone. And when you're recognized, Keith, can you do that? We'll mute everybody. And when you're recognized to speak, you'll speak so nobody talks over and argues with one another. How's that sound?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can.
Okay, thank you very much, Keith. All right, so City Attorney? City Attorney?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I was muted.
I didn't know you.
So
Commissioner, sorry.
if Commissioner Maxwell wants to make an amendment to the motion that's on the table, he's made the motion to amend. Now we need a second, and for purposes of then engaging in a discussion of the amendment.
Okay, so then Commissioner Maxwell's amendment. Do I have a second on Commissioner Maxwell's amendment? Vice Mayor, is that your second? Okay. So all those in favor state so by saying aye. I have. All right,
Aye.
aye. Commissioner Maxwell? Yes,
I'm having trouble on this.
that doesn't work, Keith.
That's an aye.
Okay, so that motion passes.
We
Now
have,
we go back to the original.
Madam Mayor, we still
Yes.
have two unmuted commissioners who haven't voted yet.
Okay, hold on.
Everyone was unmuted.
Everyone was unmuted.
Well, we can't hear anything.
Can you unmute yourselves? You can't? Hold on. Keith, they can't unmute themselves.
Okay, it just did that. And every time I tried, I got a message that said the host, and it's still up there, the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves. First of all, we didn't have any discussion on that motion, which is what I believe we said would ensue after the motion was seconded, right? That when I made my point of inquiry, Christie said, well, before that, we would have to have a motion and a second, and then discussion can ensue. We rushed to the vote, and a discussion did not ensue on the merits of Commissioner Maxwell's motion. And so I believe that there needs to be a discussion because we were all muted at the time.
All right, Christie, is that how it reads?
Yes, a motion to amend is debatable, so debate can ensue.
Okay. All right, so then we have to rescind the voting on that, but the motion and the second still stands. Okay, Commissioner Robinson, you had your, I'm sorry, Commissioner Amoroso had his hand up forever.
Yes, just for clarity, I seconded the motion to include the residents and, Christie, maybe you want to chime in here, but including the residents, would that not be taking it to a March ballot and asking the residents to weigh in?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
You can do it in a variety of ways, and maybe that's what the discussion is about, whether you have additional meetings on the issue or whether you look at including it as an actual ballot question posed to the residents of Lake Worth Beach. That's up to you. I can tell you that with the supervisor of elections, and perhaps the city clerk can also confirm this, that it's my understanding that she is not putting anything on the ballot until we get to March. So
What I
we'll
had
probably
suggested was March.
a March ballot issue.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Wow.
First of all, I Christie, and I didn't know that the supervisor of election had a right to determine when cities have ballot initiatives. I did not know that was within her constitutional authority. And I would like to have a conversation with her obviously, when I have conversations with folks individually, I'm not speaking on the behalf of this body, but on behalf of me as a representative of the folks who elected me. But I would certainly like to have a conversation with Ms. Sartori Link if she does not want important local questions to be decided when voter turnout is highest in those localities. That's number one. Number two, Commissioner Maxwell has not prescribed a method to bring this issue to the community. And we still have, we haven't heard from him. And I think that, and I don't enjoy speculating about people's motives. But what I can tell you is that, I think it's relevant to this motion. I've had conversations with Commissioner Maxwell, before I was elected, and general conversations about life and politics with Commissioner Maxwell after I was elected. And what I do know is that Commissioner Maxwell has beliefs that he would prefer not to have to vote on this dais, because his beliefs are very often not in step with what he with what many people in this city might believe, and he believes that these beliefs are a political liability for him, and so he would prefer not to have to vote on these things. We discussed this before I got elected. There was a resolution passed not too long ago about standing with the Muslim community. There were resolutions that were passed that Commissioner Maxwell reacted poorly to, that Commissioner Robinson brought forth related to guns and gun violence. I may have brought forth a similar resolution. And it's one of those things where we live in a town that's majority liberal. And, if you look at their voting registration, and Commissioner Maxwell is of the opposite, political persuasion. And this is one of those things where he feels, I believe that he feels put on the spot. And he would prefer not to have to take this vote, but rather to launder his out of step position by sending it to the ballot. And that's what referendums are very often used for. And I just want to make it clear, he didn't bring up the idea of a referendum. Commissioner Maxwell brought it up. But that's what I think this is about, right? And so, this is really simple.
Just don't try to tell us what other commissioners are thinking.
Yeah, well, I didn't
Give your own opinion on something, but
well, I don't know how that's I don't know how that's a point of order, but I think it's relevant because I think that what Commissioner Maxwell is trying to do is he's trying to avoid a tough vote rather than taking the vote here. A
point of order is non-debatable.
Oh, I'm not, okay, that's fine. I'll continue saying what I'll say. This is really simple. We're an elected body. We make decisions all the time. We voted on millions of dollars tonight that didn't go out to ballot. We committed ourselves to tens of millions of dollars a long time into the future tonight. We didn't require a referendum on that. We do things all the time that don't require a referendum because this is a representative form of government. This isn't Athens, it's Rome, to use an analogy from history. And the idea that anytime a hot potato gets on this dais, we should say, oh, I don't believe in representative democracy anymore. I was elected to make decisions. Let's put this out to the people because this is too difficult and tough for me. That's what I believe is happening. Just as I believe it happened a meeting ago. Again, I don't, if you believe I'm violating some sorts of Robert's Rules of Orders as opposed to hurting your feelings, then that's one thing. But point of orders are for Robert's Rules of Order. And that's not what this is about. And so I think we need to vote on this. I don't think we should kick this can down the road and put it on a March ballot. I think, frankly, if it does go on a ballot, which it doesn't need to, that we should put it on a November ballot because that's when turnout in the city is highest and when people who are of color are more represented among the electorate. And so, I'm distressed at the way that this is going.
I'm distressed that you don't let anyone else talk. Commissioner Maxwell.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I did not see.
I guess I'm not going to speak then.
Commissioner Maxwell.
Yeah, can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much. First of all,
what's the purpose of having your hand up?
Commissioner Maxwell, please proceed.
First of all, I'm disappointed that Commissioner Hardy has taken it upon himself to not only speak on behalf of Commissioner Robinson's thoughts and desires, but now he's chosen to do the same for me. Okay. And I want to remind Commissioner Hardy that it was not my suggestion we put this on a ballot. Okay, just to be clear, I suggest we take this back to the community. Now, you don't want to take it back to the community because you probably have a different agenda than perhaps I do. And my agenda is to work with the community and serve the community the way they'd like to be served. Okay, you, sir, are in the middle of a campaign for the State House of Representatives.
Point of order, for the same reasons that you point of ordered me, Madam Mayor, but go ahead. I don't mind the criticism, but I'll just return the favor.
Okay, well, I'll take the equal amount of time that you took to be out of order to give you a little bit of dose of your own medicine. Okay, you have taken more than your share of liberty over the last 3 or 4 months to campaign from the dais for a seat that you desperately would like to have. Because from the day you got elected to this office in this city, you've been looking to get out of this city because this elected position of yours apparently is not good enough for you. Okay, you have brought divisiveness to the city. You have created divisions between neighbors. You have bullied the commission as a whole. You have
We're
bullied.
going to allow this campaigning to go back and forth.
I'm not campaigning. I'm not running for anything,
You're
Commissioner.
certainly
I
campaigning
don't
against
mind
somebody.
criticism. He can, he can say what he'd like. I don't mind it. Please continue.
Just to wrap it up, you have bullied and cajoled and for all of these issues, because you know what, you've been on the commission for a number of years, and all these issues that have come up in the last 3 or 4 months clearly could have been brought up 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago, but we just want to keep everything in proper perspective. So with all that said, I want to remind you, sir, that I did not suggest we take it to the ballot. My recommendation is we take it back to the community, as I've said before, and that's that's how I'm going to deal with this.
Commissioner Robinson. Unmute yourself, sir. Unmute.
Commissioner Hardy doesn't speak for me. Sometimes he explains for those who don't understand the point, maybe in a better, clearer point to those who can't comprehend. And I appreciate that sometimes. When we're talking about to the people, we haven't heard, we've heard that before, this top down. When I suggested that we go out as a task force and talk to the community,
Point of order.
then it was considered top down. It's now we've heard tonight from the citizens 4-1 in favor of this. I appreciate community input. We can drag this out without leadership. That's what we do. It's a vacuum because we're not able to decide on something that goes to the county commission. It's another example of our inability to rectify something. In terms of the wall, we're certainly lacking leadership. I look at that wall and I'm embarrassed that code doesn't even step in. It's a failure of leadership to allow it to be in that condition. I'm not talking about whose leadership it is, but it's obviously an embarrassment that exists.
Solutions were given to reprimand to do that, and the PBSO asked to come in and put fencing in that area, and members of the community said no. They wanted to.
How many members did we take that to the? Members of the community. 3 people or 4 people or 7. Did we have to take that to the ballot, or we're going to, how much community input are we going to use as an excuse not to do anything? This is an embarrassment of leadership.
No, they didn't want a wood fence in place of where the concrete wall was.
I'm sorry. You have the chair, and you're quite entitled to speak at any time. I was waiting to speak over several people. And now I'm trying to make a point that we can take a leadership position, or we can kick it down the road for as long as you want and demonstrate our lack of leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardy.
Yeah, look, I don't think, well, first of all, I don't know, and I appreciate Commissioner Maxwell for clarifying that by taking it to the community, whatever that means, it doesn't mean taking it to the ballot. So it's something that doesn't involve using the authorities with which folks have invested us. It's something that involves having some sort of conversation with residents, but what exactly that is, what it entails, how we would determine that the conversation is decisive in one way or another, the commissioner has not outlined or articulated here. And I am skeptical that he intends for anything to be done on this matter. And my skepticism is born of conversations that I've had with him before being elected about things that happened on the dais before I got here, and conversations that we've had about politics. I do not mean to impugn his integrity, but what I do know is that when previous resolutions like this have come forward that involve race, that involve religion, that involve guns, that involve things that people tend to fall in line on one side or another on the left and right spectrum. I didn't say always, but I said tend to. The gentleman who represents District 1 has regretted having to discuss or vote on these things. I believe he described it as having to vote to kill the dead puppy, because his feelings as a conservative Republican
Order, Madam
are
Mayor.
not, excuse me, I am,
Point of order, you're putting words in his mouth.
no, those are the words he told me.
What does
Those are the words he told me.
Oh, we're supposed to believe that.
Okay, so, well, look, hey, you know, you can believe it or not, but this is something that Commissioner Maxwell.
Well, I turned to
Excuse me,
power,
excuse me.
Is that true? Is that a truth? You believe that? Apparently people believe that I personally turn people's power off. You can say a lie so many times and so many people believe it. It's like Fox News. Stop putting words in his mouth, and you don't put words in his mouth, and then we'll have a nice conversation. Thank you.
Can I call the question?
Can
I call the
hold on one
question?
second. Hold on. I appreciate the interruption. I'm not putting words in his mouth, and I'm free to describe conversations that I've had with the commissioner. If he disputes those, then he's free to dispute those. But I'm telling you what the man has told me. And no one here who's really familiar with him and his politics and with what has happened in this city and who's not politically motivated, you know, believes that he doesn't feel uncomfortable when he has to take these votes. And that's really, and again, you know, that's really where I think this is coming from. Now, and look, I really don't want to make this about a fight between me and my colleagues. I said in the memo that I think people of goodwill should be able to agree that there shouldn't be a highway named after the Confederate States. There shouldn't be a highway named after the anthem of the Confederate States, okay, that betrayed this country and waged war against this country. And the cornerstone of their secession and of the state that they tried to create, of the government that they tried to create, was the subjugation of African-American people to white people. Though that's not my opinion, that's the opinion of Mr. Alexander Stephens, the vice president of the Confederacy, who made that cornerstone speech in March of 1861, saying that that was the reason that they seceded. And we have a highway named after that government, or you know, the word that people use to refer to that government and to those states, and it's inappropriate. Now, to the actual matter, Mike Allison said something, and I like Mike Allison. I respect Mike Allison. I've met him, you know, many times. We've had many good conversations. He said something that I think cut to the heart of the matter, and he said that we should use our power to address issues that directly affect the quality of life for our cities residents, and then he provided a litany, talked about potholes, lewd public behavior, lack of business investment, public safety, and so on. And he said that these things must be addressed. And I agree with him, they must be addressed. But if you're a person of faith, you know, of frankly, you know, the Christian faith, you might be familiar with a little passage from Matthew that says, is not life more than meat and the body more than raiment? There are things that affect the quality of life for our residents that don't involve the sorts of, you know, nuts and bolts operations of the city. And the lady who commented, the African-American homeowner who commented, who said when she moved here 30 years ago, she thought that was strange and offensive. And she wondered why people didn't change it.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Point of order, we don't respond, or did it change? Do we respond to people now?
I'm not responding. I'm not addressing.
In the past, we've never used their questions or responded.
I am referencing, I don't know if you understand, Vice Mayor, the difference between
I understand
referencing a
perfectly.
comment and responding to it. But clearly there's a difference between the two. If you want to weaponize your majority to prevent discussion from anything that you don't like, then that's fine. Okay, but I would like to finish my comment. Okay, the lady referenced moving here, seeing Dixie, feeling it was offensive, feeling it was odd, but not doing anything about it. And that is an indignity that African-American people suffer all the time when they see racist stuff happen. But because they feel disenfranchised, they don't think it will result in any change, they don't say anything. They keep quiet. They don't raise any concerns. They're afraid of being called the angry Black person. They don't do anything. And they suffer these indignities all the time. And this Dixie Highway name, is it a pothole? No. Is it evidence of lewd and lascivious behavior in the public that people in South Palm Park unfortunately have to deal with? It's not. Is it a crime that's occurred? Certainly not a statutory crime. But what it is a crime against the humanity and the quality of African-American people who have to look at that every day and who feel and who have felt, because the reason why it hasn't been brought up before, and I'll tell you, Commissioner Maxwell said, you could have brought this up years ago. I didn't bring it up because I felt like people would have basically thrown tomatoes on me, right? And that is exactly the issue at heart here. African-American people have to put up with this stuff, and we shouldn't have to.
Women too, man. Speaking of
precisely. I agree. And let's tackle, and look, if you have issues that you want to put on this agenda related to women and their rights, please do. But right now, this is on the agenda. And it is about Black people not having to put up with this stuff. And the idea that we should put the, you know, have some vaguely, accept some vague motion about bringing it back to the community, whatever the heck that means. It hasn't even been defined by the maker of the motion.
Well, he hasn't even been given a chance to define it or to make it.
Yeah, he did have a chance.
He did not. Everyone talked over each other at that point, and you started yelling at one another.
No.
Yeah.
Let's vote.
I did not support this motion to amend.
Go ahead. You want to?
Before we embarrass ourselves anymore, let's vote.
I think we should actually cancel the meeting till election time, because I don't think anything I could say. Ready? All right. Let's entertain a motion to accept the fact that the sky is blue. Do I have a second? And if somebody would say, well, no, because sometimes the sky is purple, and sometimes right now this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, and it is a disappointment. It really is. Anyone ask my opinion on this whole thing? No, you're too busy wailing snowballs at each other that you don't even care to know my opinion on the thing. I haven't even had a chance to speak or answer any questions.
Madam Mayor, you're speaking right now, and you
Well, hello there. Well, I'm trying to get a meeting in order because everyone wants to play by their own rules. They don't want to play by the rules of respect and having a meeting where you give one chance for everyone to speak before you jump over them because you differ in opinion. And I'm sick and tired of it.
Madam Mayor.
Maxwell, you're up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to raise my hand. I apologize.
There you go. Commissioner Hardy, your hand's not up, but I heard you say Madam Mayor.
Look, this was a pretty simple resolution, and I did not complicate this matter. There's someone who doesn't want to vote against this resolution, but who also doesn't want it to pass. And that's why we are faced with this subsidiary motion to amend. if the commissioner doesn't want this resolution to pass, why not just vote against it? And after it fails, if it fails, come back and make another motion asking to bring this to the community, but also make that motion in a way that defines what the heck you mean when you say, let's bring this to the community. Because there's no details around that whatsoever.
Well, you can, the hardest part is that you bring up statistics like tonight, there was, the majority of people were in favor of changing the name. Then you go on to the Palm Beach Post's article on social media and you see 375 people responding and most of them all against it. You haven't done any polling to see what people in the community want. And quite honestly, one of the comments that came in from the public comment was, by reaching out to the community, I would assume you'd also want to reach out and get total support for this, because I don't think anybody's not in support of it because of wanting to change the name. I think there's a lot of ramifications. First of all, the mayor of Miami-Dade, it's not the mayor of the city of Miami, it's the mayor of Miami-Dade, who's a county mayor, is the one who started the change down there. And then the county of Broward.
Bobo, I believe, no, it wasn't Bobo, it was, it wasn't the mayor, I can
It
tell
was
you
the
that.
county commission. It was the county commission, though. The Miami-Dade County Commission, not the city of Miami is what I'm making a point. It's not the city of Fort Lauderdale, it's Broward County that's doing it. And I'm sure Palm Beach County, I actually called Mayor Kerner today to see if they were considering anything of this sort on the county level since since Miami had done it. And I didn't hear back from him today. So that was one of the questions that I had. The other was the financial ramifications that somebody mentioned in public comment about changing all the signage and then all the business owners having to change all their addresses and it's a business community in that area. I'm wondering if we could create some sort of program for grants or whatever for the business community so that they could take care of those things. It's just questions that I had that relate to total day-to-day types of information, but none of that was answered because everyone was busy yelling at each other.
Well,
but Commissioner Maxwell, your motion was, did you want to explain what you meant by reaching out to the public?
Can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
Yes, I can.
Okay, first of all, I
I'm
can't,
glad he has a chance to explain himself.
all right, then I won't explain myself, but I'm done with the back and forth. Okay, I don't owe an explanation. I made a motion to bring it back to the community, the constituency that I represent.
What does that mean?
And that was the motion.
I was just about to explain it until you got rude, Commissioner Robinson.
So let's just call the vote, Madam Mayor.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the vote, what is the vote, Madam City Clerk?
There's a subsidiary motion that Commissioner Maxwell made a motion to go to the residents, and it was seconded by Commissioner Amoroso.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
I'm opposed to wasting time.
Okay.
Wow.
Now you have to vote on the original motion.
Madam Mayor, can we get clarity on what the motion will be?
Yes, please. Madam City Clerk, the original motion?
Commissioner Hardy is going to have to tell you it was, he's in favor of asking us to urge the county commissioners to rename Dixie Highway.
However,
Point of inquiry,
and the subsidiary motion has to be added to that.
point of inquiry.
Yes.
So I took Commissioner Maxwell's motion. So
That's
this
what I
was a
just trying to
resolution,
explain.
excuse me. This was a resolution to urge the county commission to take up an issue. Commissioner Maxwell's motion seemed to be that we should not urge them until we've gotten some sort of feedback from our residents. Is that the way that is that what Commissioner Maxwell's motion means?
Madam City Attorney?
Madam Mayor, the way I understood it was that instead of approving the resolution, which was the motion seconded by Commissioner Hardy and Commissioner Robinson, with the amendment would be not to approve the resolution, but instead to engage the public about the issue.
That it was essentially a motion to substitute.
City Attorney?
Well, he amended your motion to not approve the resolution and instead take the matter to the public.
Right. my motion has been amended to the point of non-existence. My motion was to approve this resolution, which would have, made us urge the county commission to do something. The amendment basically amended all that out, and that rather than urging the county commission to do anything, we're going to have some vaguely defined community conversation, after which I have no idea what's going to happen. And, I don't, so I can't support this motion that Commissioner Maxwell, that basically has replaced my motion in substance. I was hopeful that we would have been able to approve this. This is so simple. Like the Miami-Dade County Commission
Point of
did
order,
not
Madam
work
Mayor.
on this project. Well, look, we're debating here. I
We
have
should
the
have actually
floor.
been done about a half hour ago.
Point of order because he doesn't like what I'm saying.
I haven't heard what you have to say.
Okay, well, that's fine, but I have the floor.
Already
So-
stated.
Well, okay, I have the floor. And so all I'm saying is Miami-Dade County Commission didn't do this because it's a terrible idea. And they didn't have some vaguely defined community conversation. They acted like elected officials and they made a decision.
Because they're
The
county.
the Hallandale Beach City
Madam
Council
Mayor, he's repeating himself.
passed a resolution just like ours, and the Broward County Commission didn't have some vaguely defined community conversation. They
That's the
acted
county
like
commission.
elected officials, and they did this. And now here we are with an
That's
opportunity to make a decision about something. We've heard from public comment. We've also heard people on social media, but clearly there are some people who want this, but more clearly, the word is racist. And no amount of sticking your head in the sand is going to wash the racism off that word Dixie.
Madam Mayor,
And it's ridiculous that it's come to this point. I regret that I've had to fight with you over something so basic as
I
not
think it's still to be
allowing
achieved.
Black people to look at this issue.
I
And
think it should still be achieved.
there are other ways to get to the county commission.
Madam,
I am very disappointed in you guys. The two of you,
Thank you very much.
particular skin and grin on the
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
thank you. My understanding is that this motion that we're about to vote on is a motion to approach the county commission once we've had an opportunity to speak with the community. If that's in fact what the city attorney will affirm, I'm prepared to vote in the affirmative.
Madam Mayor, I think you're muted.
So that's what I thought you were doing to begin with.
I just want to I want the city attorney to clarify and the city clerk that that's exactly what we're going to be doing, because if that's what we're doing, we're asking the county commission to take this up after we've spoken to the community, I will vote in the affirmative.
Yes, that's what I thought you were trying to say. And then I didn't know why you guys all started arguing.
Have you put forward to quote unquote speak with the community? And what process have you put forward to determine whether said conversation with the community is decisive one way or the other?
We can
We
do
take the
it.
vote?
Go ahead. We
I'm
can do
sorry?
it quickly and we can get it to them.
No, but
I'm sorry, but
he hasn't talked about, all he said is we're gonna have a conversation.
Time frame because you're leaving, and I'm sorry
It's
about
a
that.
resolution. This isn't rocket science. We pass resolutions all the time. We're a commission. We pass resolutions. He
A lot
said
of
we need to have a conversation with the community. All I asked him is, how
our
is that
main
conversation
business
to
district.
unfold? And how will we determine whether that conversation is decisive? So let's say we have some community conversations. How are we to, and what would that community conversation look like? How would we go about it? How would we get people in the proverbial room? How would we decide that what those people say there are decisive of the issue? They elected us to vote on matters up here. And we're not doing that. And instead of doing that, we're having this vaguely defined community, which we haven't had any definition of. Outline the process, Commissioner Maxwell. Tell me how you want this community conversation to unfold. Tell me how you want to determine once and for all whether the community wants this or not. Please explain that to me.
I remember you said the same thing when you thought we should go to the community on something else a while ago, but it's just, it's deja vu, man.
Look, if you're gonna say that I'm doing the same thing, you should at least be able to point out my hypocrisy in detail. Okay, if you're gonna call me a hypocrite, at least point out the specific thing that I did that made me a hypocrite, and don't say, well, some time ago you did something like it. Come on. I'm asking Commissioner Maxwell how we're gonna have this question and how we're gonna decide
I
that
don't
that
think
the
you want me to
conversation
say
is
what I
decided.
know for fact. Thank you. I don't think you want me to say what I know for fact. I really don't think you want to. Commissioner Maxwell, go ahead.
Oh, I've done it again. I'm sorry. I keep raising my hand. I didn't mean to do that.
Madam Mayor, I think you're muted.
Stupid muting thing is crazy today. So Commissioner Maxwell, you said that we could bring it forward to the commission after we engage the community in the discussion. That was what you meant by your motion, correct?
I just want to make sure we get the same
Was that made,
interpretation.
what was voted on? So we have to make sure, is that what your intention was? And Vice Mayor, was that your intention when you seconded it?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, so then if it erased the subsidiary motion, it's already been voted on, and that's how the resolution goes. We'll follow up with a date to address the community, to discuss the matter, so we can bring it up in one of the next commission meetings. Thank you very
Point
much.
of order, we still
Madam-
require a vote.
Yeah,
I
Like,
thought-
come on.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that it deleted your,
No, even if, so first, even if it was a motion to substitute, the vote was on substituting it to the original motion, but he did it as a subsidiary motion, and there still requires a vote.
we had
Jeez,
a vote.
There was a
No, we
vote
didn't.
taken.
I didn't vote one way
Excuse
or
me.
the other. Nobody
Madam
asked
City
me.
Madam City Clerk, did we have a vote or not, or am I going crazy?
we had a vote on the
There
subsidiary
was
motion,
there was a vote taken on the subsidiary motion and the
Yes.
vote was 3-2.
right, but that's not a vote on.
so
now-
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. We have approved the amendment to the
Thank you.
motion to approve the resolution. So now we have to vote on the motion as amended. So the motion as amendment, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Maxwell, is that we're moving to engage the community on the resolution. Based on that community engagement, we will then move forward.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we've got a motion and we have a second, correct?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson made the second of Commissioner Hardy's motion.
Yes, and I can't vote for Commissioner Maxwell's motion without knowing more about how he wants to address the community. This was what I wanted to address at the beginning of our meeting, and obviously wasn't allowed to bring that forward.
Well, there are just ways to do it. That's it. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 All
No,
those opposed?
Nay.
no, I'm not going to waste my time with Commissioner Maxwell's petitions and
Okay.
his community input.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item then, please. And that is resolution number, you know what? Let's take a quick break. I have to run to the ladies' room. Sorry. Break time. I have to mute. Yeah. knocked my camera over. Yeah. You guys all there?
Okay. Commissioner Maxwell isn't.
Okay. So wait just a minute.
Here he is.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's resume this Tuesday, July 7th, regular city commission meeting. And we're on item new business, what was formerly B, which is now C. And that's resolution number 24-2020, presenting a request in support of body worn cameras and the funding thereof to the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I believe I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so you're seconding?
No, I have my hand up before we went to a break as soon as the item came up.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we have the motion in the second, so now we can discuss. So you're up.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to amend this. And my amendment will be that in addition to asking the county commission to fund this, that we need to ask the sheriff to request funds from the county commission specifically for this purpose. The county commission doesn't have the authority to give the sheriff money and tell him what to do with it, not under the statute. And the sheriff needs to ask for this money if it's something that he wants. So that's my amendment. We need to amend, we need to add to this resolution that the sheriff needs to request this and commit to funding it.
To see if so is that an amendment to?
That's an amendment to the motion on the floor.
Okay. We have to vote on? Subsidiary motions. Okay, so do I have a second? Do I have a second? Vice Mayor, you wanted a second?
Madam Mayor, I had my hand up. I had a question for the attorney. I believe the same motion was made the last time we met on this issue and it failed. Can the same motion be made again?
Point of inquiry.
No, that was my question to the city attorney.
Let the city attorney answer that question, then you're welcome to go next. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If that same motion was made and denied at the last meeting, then technically it's a motion for reconsideration.
Yeah.
And not a motion.
Point of inquiry.
Yes.
Or rather, I'll say point of order. It's been stated that the same motion has been made, but the motion that was made in the last meeting, okay, was not a motion to amend a resolution. It was a motion to amend a request of this body to bring a resolution to itself. This isn't, the last motion I made wasn't amending a resolution before this body. It was amending a request to bring a resolution forward. There was no resolution in front of us. This motion pertains.
My bad. So you just did it in a different form. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, I'm certainly not interested in the county giving the sheriff more money. I think out of over 700 million, he should be responsible enough to find it as a priority out of his budget.
Wow. We're back at that blue sky thing. City attorney, can you help me through?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to ask a clarification. Commissioner Hardy, is your amendment to amend the resolution? So instead of it just going to the county commission, you also want it to go directly to the sheriff, asking the sheriff to request the funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I just want to make sure I understand that.
So I should be clear. My motion is to amend this resolution to go to the sheriff and to ask him to request these funds for this purpose. And that if he does not get the additional funds from the county commission that he is asking for this specific purpose, that he would commit to funding them out of the budget that he is given, which I think speaks to Commissioner Robinson's point that regardless, he should be able to manage his budget and find the money for this. That's my request.
I'll
To
second it.
amend. Okay.
Okay. Do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have just one from Ruby Bell at 1020 North L Street. She's against this. She said this is a costly issue that will require I don't know exactly what she meant there, current PBSO systems. It would have to go on a county ballot and funding would need to be obtained. I am not in favor of any additional taxes. That's all, Madam Mayor.
So we've got, is it considered an amended motion or subsidiary motion?
Well, we have a pending subsidiary motion that we need to vote on whether or not to amend.
Commissioner Hardy, seconded by Commissioner Robinson. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Hold on.
Aye.
Is there any discussion on this amendment as there was on Commissioner Maxwell's amendment?
I think you guys made yourself abundantly clear. Commissioner Maxwell, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm not going to support this motion. I don't want to cloud the resolution. The county needs to take this up and work it out. However, they need to work it out with the sheriff's office.
Okay, Commissioner Robinson?
I was going to ask Commissioner Maxwell whether he's heard from the community, in what sense he's able to vote this way. Does he need any help with the community input?
Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah.
So I want to be clear about this. This resolution is not going to move this issue forward in a meaningful way. And it's because of the state statute that governs how the sheriff relates to the county commission. The sheriff, first of all, presents them a budget with a total of, I think it's 9 categories. There are 3 functional categories and 6 quote unquote line items. The county commission can amend that budget up or down, and the sheriff can then appeal it to the administration commission. There's a hearing with the office of the governor, and the governor makes a recommendation to the administration commission as to what that budget is ultimately going to look like, and the administration commission decides, period. And really crucially, the county commission, we're asking the county commission to do something they don't have the authority to do, asking them to fund something that the sheriff hasn't requested. It's not, like, they don't have the ability. If all 7 of them voted today, okay, and said to the sheriff, hey, we're going to give you $20 million and we want you to spend it this way, the sheriff doesn't have to spend it that way. And frankly, the sheriff hasn't requested money for this, even though this has been a topic of conversation since at least 2016, when it came up in his interview with the Sun Sentinel. And, when I understand he was having conversations with, Virginia Baker, and it was reported that Ms. Baker did not have enough information from the sheriff to put together a proposal either way. And so I question the usefulness of this resolution, which asks the county commission to do something it doesn't have the power to do. The sheriff requests a budget from them. They either give him what he wants or not. And at the end of the day, the governor is the final say. He hasn't requested this. So they could give it, they can say they're going to give him the money for that, but he doesn't have to spend it that way. And so this is, in my opinion, a dodge of the real issue, which is that we have to engage the sheriff. He's the person who is the ultimate decision maker here, and we're purposefully not engaging him for Lord knows what reason. And so I don't know why we can't engage him. And I don't know why we can't make this a part of the same resolution, because it's germane to the topic of body-worn cameras. So, I cannot support this resolution unless my amendment is a part of it.
Okay. You know, I actually agreed with part of what you said, Commissioner Hardy, and I actually wasn't opposed to supporting your motion until you made the third change in it at the very end. I have actually been through the negotiation process, and I've actually been there at the county commission when the sheriffs was dealing with their budget. And I've had met with some other mayors who have PBSO, Belglade, Wellington, some different mayors in our community, and all of them support asking the sheriff for body cams. And then we were talking about going through possibly the League of Cities to actually bond together to make it more powerful, to get the county commission to do that and to work together to do that. I thought it was a great success that we got this here, and I thought this was going to be a no-brainer. And I even would have gone with your first iteration of an amendment. I was even supportive of that. But now that it's changed again, I'm saddened by that. I thought this was a home run for all of us. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second now. The motion that we're on is Commissioner Hardy's, seconded by Commissioner Robinson's. Is that correct, Madam Attorney?
That's correct.
Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Vice Mayor, you there?
I said nay.
You were muted, sorry.
I'm
Okay,
sorry, my video is doing in and out tonight.
okay. All right, so where are we at now?
Madam Mayor, so the original motion to approve the resolution as is stands.
Okay.
So if there is no discussion on that original motion, then a vote needs to be taken on the original motion.
So the original motion back to the beginning as it stands.
There was
Yes,
a
All right.
motion made by Commissioner Amoroso, seconded by Commissioner Maxwell.
I was just going to ask you that. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. Reading my mind. I gotta take notes more. Who spoke and what they said last. All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I mean, aye. This is gonna do nothing, but aye.
Okay. Commissioner Robinson?
I voted, I thought I heard from the community that they wanted body cams.
That's why we're sending it to the county commission. Okay, there we go. Motion carries unanimously, and I would have gone with what you were saying, Commissioner Hardy, too. So there we
Motion
are.
adjourned.
There we go. Second? Oh, come on, you guys have to want to adjourn.
Second.
There we go. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wow, another unanimous decision. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you all. Be safe. Wash your hands. Wear your masks. Thank you.